As a geopolitical landscape shifts, Ukraine is caught in a perfect storm of dwindling support and mounting challenges. Our next story decodes how Ukraine is bracing for the potential impact of a second Trump presidency that could drastically alter its political fortunes.
Ukraine's forces are struggling to hold ground in the face of the relentless Russian assault. Forced to fight with arms meant to be scrapped, Kyiv is desperately appealing to allies for more weapons and ammunition for its forces. But even as the better equipped and more numerous Russian forces are gaining ground in the east of the country, a new blow has emerged from an unexpected quarter for Kyiv. Germany, a key ally, has announced plans to slash its military aid to Ukraine by half in the coming year. The timing of the reduction couldn't have been worse for Ukraine. Germany wants to slash its military spending from $8 billion in 2024 to just over $4 billion in 2025. Added to the prospect of a potential Trump presidency looming on the horizon, international support for Kyiv's cause seems to be fast eroding. Adding to Ukraine's woes, Donald Trump has tabbed J.D. Vance as his running mate for the upcoming US presidential election. Vance, like Trump, has been a vocal critic of aid to Ukraine, advocating instead a pivot towards Asia. All of which signals a likely seismic shift in US foreign policy should the Republican ticket prevail in November. Trump's rhetoric on ending the war swiftly even before taking office has raised concerns about Ukraine being pressured into unfavorable negotiations with Moscow. The uncertainty surrounding Trump's actual policies, often described as a black box by foreign diplomats, is only adding to the anxiety in Kyiv. Bureau Report WION, World is One.
So if Donald J. Trump wins the presidency in 2024, what will happen? Retired Colonel David B. Desroches is a professor near East South Asia Center for Strategic Studies, National Defense University. The Colonel is joining us live from Washington, D.C. Colonel Desroches, welcome and thank you very much for making time for us. Why are some countries like Ukraine and Israel jittery of the likely Trump presidency?
Because he's unpredictable. Trump is not a career politician. The Republican Party follows Trump. It's not Trump follows the Republican Party. He's somebody that is outside of the traditional political and diplomatic class that America's partners, allies, and even adversaries are used to dealing with. So that's uncertainty there. What complicates this is within his base, there is a strong threat of isolationism that basically says, why should we, help out any other country when we have potholes in rural Ohio where J.D. Vance grew up. So there's uncertainty there. But I think if you look at the record, you'll find that these are fears. They're not entirely supported in the record of the first Trump term. And all presidents tend to grow in the job.
Colonel Desroches, Trump has previously said numerous times that if he were president today, there wouldn't be any war anywhere in the world. If he does win the presidential election, how is Trump going to change the tide, taking in consideration that both wars in Ukraine and Gaza may be still ongoing?
Yeah, well, let me start off with a general caveat. Trump says a lot of stuff. And again, his background is in business, not in politics. So, in business, you threaten, you bluster, you throw up ridiculous ideas to see what their reaction would be. And he's kind of translated that. So it's kind of a fool's errand to deeply parse every one of his statements. But I think when he says that, what he means is a couple of things. The first thing is he's trying to draw a strength between what he is trying to project as, or a contrast between what he's trying to project as his image of strength, which is very important to him, whether it's borne out or not, versus Joe Biden's conciliatory approach towards Iran and other countries. The point that Trump wants to get across is that when I was president, Putin wouldn't try this kind of stuff because he knew I was too strong, whereas my adversary, everybody eats his lunch across the world. That's more political than policy, and I think that through a political lens rather than a policy lens is the right way to look at Donald Trump's statements.
Colonel Desroches, let's talk about his policies then. For the benefit of our viewers, what is it about Trump's foreign policies that make nations both allied to the U.S. or not fear that it will either roll back or affect their relations with the U.S.?
So Trump has no policies right now. So that's one of the problems. So there's a couple of things. The first thing is, again, using business techniques, he said things like, the United States will not support NATO if European countries don't it, since NATO is primarily for European defense. I think that when you look at what he's actually done while he was president, he did not withdraw from NATO. What he was doing was negotiating, bluffing, or arguably stating what he sees to be a historical inevitability. You can't expect another 70 years of the U.S. spending 6% on national defense while European countries spend less than 2%. So I think that that's a little overdrawn. I think that he does, his fatal flaw is he has supreme self-confidence in his belief of himself, his ability to make a deal. If he could just get in a room with somebody, he could make a deal that would be favorable to American interests. But the failed attempt to do that with North Korea in his first term, I think, chastised him. So he'll be a little bit more cautious. So my advice to foreign analysts would be to say, don't freak out about this. A lot of this stuff is for domestic consumption. And the interests of the United States remain the same. There may be some adjustments along the margin, but the United States' prosperity is dependent on a stable regime of global trade that benefits India, that benefits the United States, and he won't move away from that.
All right, before I let you go, just very quickly, what do you think will change if Trump is elected president?
I think most of the changes initially will be internal to the U.S. government. I think that Trump views the established civil service and the structure of the federal government as innately hostile. He views it as a Democratic constituency, which frustrated his attempts to implement policy in the first term. And so I think that there will be a structuring of government like we have not seen in over 100 years. And I think that there will be some significant changes in how the internal aspects of the executive branch function. The second thing I think we'll see will be a policy review in a number of areas, and one of these is Ukraine. I've been very critical of the Biden administration's approach to Ukraine because I think they've been reactive. They have not laid out a vision of success or victory for the American people. I think that Trump's team is aware of that, and I think that that's one of the things they'll work on.
All right, I've been talking to retired Colonel David B. Desroches. Colonel, as always, thank you very much for talking to us today. For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.